The morning Jonathan walked out of their lives began like any other Thursday. The kettle whistled sharply, the ceiling fan clicked with every slow turn, and the TV hummed with a cartoon tune because Lily, just 5 years old, insisted on watching before school. At the sink, Grace dried the last of last night's dishes, already calculating how she would stretch the few bills left in her wallet until payday. She couldn't have known that this day would carve her world into two pieces, life before, and life after. Jonathan entered the kitchen already polished in his navy blue suit, shoes shining, suitcase by his side. His cologne filled the air before he even spoke. "I'll be back Sunday night," he said, brushing a crumb off his tie. "Just a quick trip." Grace's eyes rose over the rim of her chipped mug. "You never mentioned any trip." "It came up last minute," he replied smoothly. "Clients, you know how they are." 8-year-old Ethan ran in, his backpack dragging at one shoulder. He grinned through the gap in his teeth. "Dad, will you be at my game Saturday? Coach might let me pitch." Jonathan bent down, smile camera ready as always, and ruffled his son's hair. "If I'm back in time, champ." "I'll try." Grace's gaze lingered. "Try." He leaned toward her, pressing only the air beside her cheek. "Don't start, Grace. It's work." Her voice dropped low so the kids wouldn't catch it. "Work didn't cover the gas bill last month. And rent is due." Jonathan's hand gripped his suitcase handle tighter. "You always pick the wrong moment." "Not now." Lily slid off the couch and wrapped her arms around his leg. "Bring me a pink lollipop." "I'll bring you 10, he said with a soft chuckle, prying her small hands away as though she weighed nothing. And just like that, he was gone, wheels of the suitcase whispering across the floor, the front door clicking shut. That sound clung to Grace's ears longer than his cologne lingered. At first, she told herself not to overreact. Husbands traveled. Wives waited. Families survived lean months. Still, as she smeared peanut butter across Ethan's sandwich, the silence pressed down on her chest, the kind that warns of a storm before the first drop falls. On the school run, Ethan kept glancing out the window. "Do you think I'll get to pitch?" "You've practiced enough," Grace said, both hands tight on the wheel that stuck on turns. "Focus. Breathe. You'll do great." "Dad said he'll try," Ethan murmured. "I know." In the back seat, Lily kicked her shoes against the seat rhythmically. 10 lollipops, she counted on her fingers, starting over when she ran out. After drop-off, Grace stopped at the grocery store with a tiny list: eggs, milk, bread, apples. She checked the price on each item like she was solving a puzzle. Apples were too much. She put them back. A smaller loaf of bread instead. Money felt like a blanket that never reached her toes. At noon, her phone buzzed. It was her best friend, Maya. "How's your morning?" "Fine," Grace lied. "And Mr. Business trip?" Maya teased. "Last-minute thing. Didn't say where. Supposed to be back Sunday." Silence on the other end. "Grace, you okay?" "Just tired." "Maybe you can come tomorrow." Grace forced a smile into her voice. "If I need to scream, I'll use a pillow and save your ears." Maya laughed softly. "Deal. But call if anything feels off." By afternoon, the kids were back, asking for snacks and cartoons. Grace grilled cheese sandwiches, cutting Lily's into triangles the way she liked. Ethan laughed at the TV. The house looked perfectly normal, like a photograph someone might frame to sell happiness. But by nightfall, the mask slipped. At 9 p.m., Grace texted Jonathan. "Did you arrive?" No reply. At 10, she tried again. "Did you land?" Silence. By 11, she called. Voicemail. She didn't leave a message. At midnight, she tried once more. Straight to voicemail. She barely slept, the alarm dragging her into Friday as though she hadn't closed her eyes at all. Saturday brought Ethan's big game. Gray skies loomed heavy overhead, but he pitched 2 solid innings, striking out a boy nearly twice his size. Grace cheered until her throat hurt. But Ethan kept scanning the sidelines, searching for a father who never showed. Maybe his flight was delayed, he said in the car, his voice too casual for the way his eyes dimmed. Maybe, Grace whispered. It was a lie she could swallow. We'll call after lunch. They called. No answer. Sunday night, Grace stood at the window after the kids had gone to bed, staring at the empty street, waiting for the navy suit, the rolling suitcase, the lazy wave. Darkness thickened. Nobody came. Monday morning, after dropping the kids, Grace called Jonathan's office. Hi, this is Grace Miller. Could I speak with Jonathan? A pause. He doesn't work here anymore. Grace's stomach dropped. Excuse me. Since when? 2 weeks ago. He accepted another position. Do you know where? I'm sorry, I can't give out that information. The call ended. Grace stood barefoot in the kitchen, the floor icy beneath her toes. 2 weeks ago. He had already walked away from his job before spinning that story about a trip. She dialed Maya immediately. He quit, Grace said. Quit what? His job. He wasn't on a business trip, Maya. He left. Her friend's voice softened. I'm coming over. Grace's eyes drifted to the family calendar. A red circle for rent due. A heart Lily had doodled for her birthday. A gold star Ethan had proudly placed for game day, the one Jonathan had promised to attend. The paper looked like it was filled with broken promises. Maya arrived with coffee and muffins, hugging Grace tight at the door. Tell me everything. So Grace poured it out, the missing husband, the silent phone, the lies. Have you called his mother? Maya asked gently. Grace hesitated. We haven't spoken in months. She babies him. Of course she does, Maya muttered. Still, Grace dialed. Hi, Linda. It's Grace. Oh, Jonathan's mother replied, cool as glass. How are the kids? They're fine. I'm calling about Jonathan. Is he with you? Why would he be? He's a grown man. He said he went on a business trip, but he's not answering. His office said he quit. Silence stretched. Then Linda sighed. Men need space when they're finding their path. Maybe he stepped back. He didn't step back. He disappeared. Her voice sharpened. Maybe if you were more supportive. Grace ended the call, her hand trembling. Don't you dare blame yourself, Maya whispered. But Grace's throat was too tight for words. Later, when she fetched the kids from school, she forced a smile so wide her cheeks ached. Ethan climbed in holding a ribbon for best sportsmanship. Lily carried a purple house drawing with a sun that took up half the page. Can we call Dad now? Ethan asked. Tonight, Grace said, her voice even. Let's go home. Back inside, the answering machine blinked. She pressed play. Mrs. Miller, this is Brandy from Pine River Storage. We just want to confirm the automatic payment for the unit under Jonathan Miller. Grace's breath caught. Storage unit? Maya raised her brows. Since when do you have one of those? We don't, Grace said flatly. She called the number immediately. Yes, this is Grace Miller. You left a message. Right, we just wanted to confirm the unit under Jonathan Miller. Autopay went through last week. What's inside? Grace asked, though she knew the answer. I'm sorry, we can't disclose contents. Is he there? No notes on that. But would you like the address? Grace jotted it down. Maya's hand gripped her shoulder. You're not going alone, she said. They loaded the kids into the car. Ice cream? Maya suggested cheerfully. The children cheered, clueless. Pine River Storage stood at the edge of town, rows of orange doors behind a chain-link fence. Grace went inside. I need to see Jonathan Miller's unit. He's my husband. The clerk shook his head. Only the renter or listed contacts can enter. Please, Grace begged, voice cracking. It's urgent. Sorry, ma'am. Rules are rules. She walked back to the car, cheeks burning. How about that ice cream? She asked her kids, masking the fire in her chest. That night, after bedtime stories and baths, she wandered the quiet house. Jonathan's charger still dangled by the bed. His pillow held the dent of old habit. His jacket hung on the closet door. She slid her hands into the pockets, just a ticket stub, a mint wrapper. But in the dresser, she found an empty drawer. In the closet, a few shirts missing. His duffel bag gone. His golf clubs, his toolbox, gone. He hadn't left suddenly. He had planned it. The truth seared through her, he was never coming back. Then her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He's with me. Don't call again. Grace stared at the glowing screen, her hands trembling. She read the message once, then again. He's with me. Don't call again. Her chest tightened. Still, she typed back quickly. Who is this? Where is he? No response. A minute later, another notification buzzed. A photo this time. Jonathan sat at a bar, smiling like he hadn't in years. A woman leaned into him, her hand resting on his chest with a kind of ownership that pierced Grace's stomach like a blade. She had perfect hair, a sharp smile, and the kind of confidence that made her look at home pressed against him. Grace's fingers shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She placed it on the nightstand, then picked it up again like it burned her skin. Finally, she stumbled to the bathroom, splashed her face with cold water, and forced herself to look in the mirror. The eyes staring back at her looked years older than they had that morning. She hated it. When she returned to the bedroom, she typed one last desperate message. We have children. Tell him to call his son and daughter. The typing dots appeared, disappeared, then returned. Finally, don't drag them into this. He's starting over. Respect that. Grace's insides went quiet, like a lake gone still after the wind dies. She didn't scream. She didn't throw the phone. She just set it down and walked away. She checked Ethan first. He was asleep, mouth slightly open, a ribbon pinned proudly to his board above the bed. She smoothed his hair gently. Then Lily, curled with her blanket kicked halfway down the bed. Grace tucked it back around her legs, the way her own mother used to do when storms rattled the windows. Outside their rooms, Grace sat on the carpet, leaning her head against the wall, listening to the hum of the house, the fridge clicking, the pipes whispering. Right there, in that narrow hallway, she made a decision. If Jonathan wanted to vanish, he would not take her strength or dignity with him. She would still rise, still feed her children, still face each day even when it felt impossible. Tomorrow she would call a lawyer. She would ask the school about tuition aid. She would arrange payment plans. She would write every bill, every promise, every need in a notebook and face them one by one. Maybe later she'd cry, but not tonight. Tonight she would stand guard over her children like a soldier at a gate. Her phone buzzed again. One last message, don't contact him again. He needs peace. Grace whispered into the silence, not for the sender, not even for Jonathan, but for herself. We need peace, too. That night she opened a notebook, scribbling 3 lines. Rent due, 14th, find a way. Ethan's inhaler refill. Call attorney. Then she closed it and went to bed. Sleep came in fragments. By morning, she rose early and made pancakes with the last of the mix, a small holiday her kids deserved. Ethan devoured 2.5. Lily saved half of hers, for Daddy, then forgot and fed it to the dog. On the way to school, Ethan asked quietly, "Mom, when's Dad coming back?" "He's going to be gone for a while," Grace said evenly. "How long is a while?" She didn't lie this time. "I don't know. Can I still pitch next game?" "Yes. I'll be there yelling the loudest." Lily's voice was soft. "Did he forget us?" Grace caught her eyes in the mirror. "No. He made his choice. Now we'll make ours." At the curb, Ethan hesitated before leaning back into the car. "You'll be okay, Mom. I'll be more than okay. Go show them how amazing you are." He grinned, ran inside. Lily waved with both hands before skipping through the door. Grace watched them disappear inside the school, then gripped the steering wheel. The day ahead loomed like a mountain. But mountains were climbed step by step. 5 years passed. Not quickly, not like flipping calendar pages in a movie. Each year dragged, heavy with battles, bills late, cars breaking down, sicknesses, storms. In the beginning, she thought she'd crumble without Jonathan. But she discovered something startling: she had always been the backbone. She worked dawn shifts at the diner, evenings cleaning offices, and every other moment holding Ethan and Lily steady so they wouldn't topple. By year 2, the sharp sting dulled into something quieter. Not forgiveness, not healing, just a numbness that allowed her to function. By year 5, Ethan was 13, tall, shoulders broadening, his voice cracking when excitement rushed him. Lily was 10, her father's dark hair but her mother's sharp eyes. Jonathan's absence still lingered, not in words but in glances, the way Ethan studied other dads at games, the way Lily leaned against Grace during school recitals and whispered, "Did you clap loud enough for both of us?" One ordinary Tuesday, an envelope appeared on the coffee table. Grace almost missed it while folding laundry, but the handwriting froze her in place. Jonathan's slanted script stared back at her after all these years. She sat, tracing the edge with her thumb, debating. Why now? Finally, she tore it open. Inside was a thick cream-colored card. Expensive. Elegant. The kind of paper people chose to flaunt success. "Mr. Jonathan Miller requests the honor of your presence at the marriage of." Her eyes froze on the bride's name, Rebecca Lane. Beneath the print, his handwriting added a single line, "Would be honored if you could attend." A short, sharp laugh escaped her lips, breaking the stillness. She dropped the card as if it were toxic. Later, when Ethan came home sweaty from practice, he pointed at it. "What's that?" "Nothing you need to worry about," Grace said too quickly. He didn't push, though doubt shadowed his face. That night, Grace called Maya. "You won't believe this. Try me. He's getting married. To you." Maya teased, then paused at Grace's silence. "Oh God. To someone else? Rebecca Lane. And guess what? He invited me." "What?" Maya's voice shot up an octave. "He didn't send Ethan a birthday card. Didn't show up for Lily's recital. But he wants you to clap for his wedding." "That's about right. And are you?" "Grace, tell me you're not actually going." "I don't know. Part of me thinks it's insane. Another part. I want him to see me. Not broken. Just me." "If you go," Maya warned, "be ready. This isn't just seeing him, it's walking into the life he chose instead of yours." "I know," Grace whispered. For 2 days, the invitation sat untouched. Finally, she made her choice. She wouldn't tell the kids. They didn't need the image of their father grinning in a suit for someone else's future. The wedding was held 2 hours away, in a hotel so extravagant Grace had to look up how to pronounce its name. On the morning of, she dressed with care. Not flashy. A black dress that fit well. Pearl earrings from her grandmother. A little lipstick. She wasn't there to compete. Where are you going? Ethan asked. To meet someone from the past. Are they important? They used to be. The drive felt endless. Every mile pulled memories back, pancakes on Sundays, late-night talks, the empty dresser drawer, the cruel text from the woman. At the hotel, expensive cars filled the lot. She parked her old one among them and walked inside. Glass doors gleamed like air. A suited man greeted her. Here for the Miller Lane wedding? Yes. Her voice was steady, the grand hall smelled of roses and wealth. Gold ribbons draped the chairs. Music floated from a string quartet. Guests filled the room with quiet laughter and clinking glasses. Up front, Jonathan stood in a tailored suit that made him look polished, almost younger. Beside him, Rebecca glowed in a river of white silk, her beauty precise, calculated. Jonathan laughed at something a groomsman whispered. Then his eyes found Grace. The laugh died instantly. Color drained from his face. A hush rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. Whispers spread. Grace didn't hurry. She walked the aisle slowly, heels striking the marble, silence growing with each step until even the music faltered. Jonathan's jaw clenched. His eyes darted from Rebecca to Grace, back again. When she reached the front, she didn't sit. She didn't smile. Hello, Jonathan. Her voice was calm. Steady. But it carried through the hall like a bell. The whispers in the hall swelled as Grace's calm greeting echoed. Rebecca's flawless smile flickered, her poise cracking just slightly as she glanced between her groom and the woman who had just arrived. Jonathan's lips parted, but his voice came out barely above a whisper. Grace. Gasps stirred through the guests. Rebecca's shoulders stiffened, her grip tightening on her bouquet. You look surprised, Grace said evenly, her eyes locked on Jonathan. He cleared his throat, struggling for composure. I didn't think you would actually come. Oh, I nearly didn't, she replied softly. But then I thought, you wouldn't have invited me unless you wanted me here. Rebecca's voice finally cut through the heavy air. Jonathan, what is happening? Jonathan glanced at her, then back to Grace. It's complicated. A low, humorless laugh escaped Grace. No, Jonathan. It's actually very simple. The officiant froze with his book in hand, unsure whether to continue. The crowd leaned forward, curiosity thick in the room. Grace's voice rose, steady but edged with steel. 5 years ago, this man walked away from me and our children. No warning. No goodbye. No money. Just gone. A collective gasp surged through the rows. Children, someone whispered loudly. Rebecca's head whipped toward Jonathan. You have kids. His face drained. I told you. Grace cut him off, sharp as a blade. You told her nothing. Just like you told me nothing when you vanished. She stepped closer, voice unwavering. I learned through strangers, about the storage unit you hid, about the woman who sent me a text saying you had a new life. I learned from silence when you ignored birthdays, recitals, hospital visits. You were never there. Jonathan tried to speak, but Grace's words drowned him. For 5 years, I raised our children alone. I worked 2 jobs, sat through nights in emergency rooms when Ethan's asthma struck, kept Lily in school, and patched together every broken promise you left behind. While you built this picture-perfect world for yourself. The hall was silent now. Even the musicians had lowered their bows, frozen mid-song. Grace reached into her clutch and pulled out an envelope. She extended it toward Rebecca. Do you know what this is? Rebecca frowned. No. It's a copy of my marriage certificate. To Jonathan Miller. We are still legally married. The air cracked. Someone audibly gasped. Rebecca's face paled. What? Jonathan stepped forward quickly. Grace, I. Don't, she snapped, raising a hand. Not here. Not with more lies. The officiant's voice trembled. Mr. Miller, is this true? Jonathan faltered, words tangled. We've been separated. I didn't think. You didn't think, Grace cut him again, her voice slicing through. That has always been the problem. You didn't think about your children. You didn't think about the bills. You didn't think about vows you made in front of your family and God. Promises you're standing here about to repeat as if they mean nothing. Rebecca took a step back, horror dawning in her eyes. You told me you were divorced. Finalized years ago. Jonathan reached for her hand. She recoiled as if scalded. I didn't want to complicate things, he muttered weakly. Complicate? Rebecca's voice cracked. You lied. You lied to me. To everyone here. She turned sharply to the crowd. Did any of you know he was still married? Heads shook, whispers erupted again, louder this time. Grace's tone softened, but her words weighed heavier. Jonathan, you can keep running from truth, but you cannot erase it. Today, it has caught up with you. She turned slightly, her voice carrying to every guest. I didn't come here to ruin a wedding. I came so that he, and all of you, could see the cost of betrayal. Choices leave scars. And lies have consequences. Rebecca stared at Jonathan as though seeing a stranger. Then she lifted her chin and spoke clearly. This wedding is over. Gasps swept the room. Rebecca gathered the hem of her gown, walking out with her bridesmaids and mother close behind, their faces scathing as they passed Jonathan. Jonathan's expression hardened, anger flashing. You didn't have to humiliate me like this. Grace stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he heard. No, Jonathan. I didn't have to. But I wanted you to feel, for just 5 minutes, what I felt for 5 years. She stepped back, her eyes steady on his. Then she turned, heels clicking against marble as the crowd parted before her. Some guests stared, some nodded faintly, some looked away, ashamed. Grace walked through them without faltering. Outside, warm air hit her face. She drew a deep breath, the knot in her chest loosening for the first time in years. She didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She simply breathed. For the first time since that Thursday morning long ago, the air didn't hurt to inhale. By the time Grace parked in her driveway, her phone buzzed relentlessly. Missed calls from Maya, messages from unknown numbers, even a voicemail from a stranger. I saw what you did at the Miller Lane wedding. You're a brave woman. Grace ignored them. She walked inside to find Ethan gaming on the couch, Lily coloring with markers. How was it? Ethan asked without looking up. It ended quicker than I expected, Grace replied simply. You see your friend? Lily asked. Grace smiled faintly. Yes. And I said what I needed to say. Neither child pushed further. That was enough. The next morning, Maya arrived with coffee and a mischievous grin. You've gone viral. What? Grace blinked. Maya turned her phone toward her. A shaky video filled the screen, Grace walking down the aisle, Jonathan freezing, the confrontation. Caption, woman crashes ex's wedding and drops a bombshell. Thousands of views. The comments section already a battlefield. She's a hero. He deserved it. Messy. Should have stayed private. This is what happens when you abandon your family. Grace stared at the screen, overwhelmed by equal parts exhaustion and strange relief. Local chatter says Rebecca's family is furious, Maya continued. They've pulled their business from Jonathan's company. Her father's telling people Jonathan's a fraud. Grace didn't gloat. But she didn't pity him either. By week's end, the ripples hit Jonathan hard. His photo vanished from his company's leadership page. Word spread that Rebecca had returned the ring and moved out. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Grace's phone rang with an unknown number. She almost ignored it. But she answered. Grace? Jonathan's voice, smaller than she remembered. You didn't have to do that, he began. Yes, Jonathan, I did. You wrecked everything. No, you ruined my life. Grace's sharp laugh cut him. No, Jonathan. You ruined your life the day you abandoned us and built everything on lies. I only pulled the curtain so others could see what you'd hidden. Silence hung heavy. Finally, he whispered, How are the kids? They're fine, because I made sure they were. A pause. Can I talk to them? Her tone was iron. When you prove you're ready to be a real father, not just a voice on the phone. Until then, no. She hung up before he could reply. Over the next month, the scandal faded from headlines. But not from Jonathan's life. Grace heard he'd moved into a small apartment, looking for work. People who once toasted with him at charity events now crossed the street to avoid him. Grace, though, didn't waste time thinking about him. She focused on Ethan, on Lily, on quiet satisfaction. One Saturday at Ethan's game, a woman with silver hair approached her in the stands. You're the woman from the wedding, aren't you? Grace hesitated. Yes. The woman smiled softly. Good for you. My husband left me 20 years ago. I never spoke my truth. I carried that silence for decades. You did the right thing. Grace thanked her quietly. When she turned back to watch Ethan pitch, she felt lighter than she had in years. Months later, Jonathan sent a letter. Grace, I'm sorry. I should have been a better man, a better father. I thought I could begin again, but I see now, you can't build a future on lies. She folded it, placed it in a drawer, and left it there. She didn't need his words. She had already moved on. The real moment she knew she'd won wasn't the wedding, the viral video, or even the apology. It came on an ordinary Wednesday night. She walked in from work to find Ethan teaching Lily how to scramble eggs, laughter filling the kitchen, butter sizzling in the pan. When Lily spotted her, she grinned. We're making dinner for you, Mom. You work too hard. Grace hugged them both, holding on longer than usual. Betrayal doesn't only shatter trust, it tests the strength of the one betrayed. You can crumble under someone else's choices, or you can rise and make your own. Jonathan lost everything because he built his life on lies. Grace gained everything because she stood in truth and refused to stay silent. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's living stronger than ever. By the time Grace closed her eyes that night, the house was quiet, but her heart was steady. She had lived through the storm, walked into the fire, and come out stronger. Her children were growing into kind, resilient souls. Her home, though modest, was filled with laughter and warmth. And her spirit, once shattered, now stood firm. Jonathan's choices had once defined her pain. But now, her choices defined her strength. She had learned that betrayal could strip away comfort, but it could never take away dignity, unless you handed it over. Grace never did. The world saw a woman who stood tall in the face of lies. Her children saw a mother who refused to break. And she saw herself, not as the abandoned wife, not as the woman left behind, but as the survivor who turned loss into power. Because in the end, the greatest revenge is not shouting, not exposing, not even fighting. The greatest revenge is living well, walking forward, and building a life so strong that no one's betrayal can shake it.